Hey, good evening, guys. First of all, I've never felt so nervous about the time in which I have to speak in my life. And thank you for giving me the extra 4 seconds. This is amazing. Take advantage of it. Stop talking about this stuff, Mark, and say your talk. Oh, gosh. Well, thanks so much for letting me be here. Cool. You guys are awesome. Take your time on that time. We live in a beautiful place. And looking even in this room, this great room, the chandeliers, the tables, the food, the way everything's set up, look around at each other. Like, look across the table. We're around beautiful people. You all look freaking beautiful, you know? I mean, like beautiful goodness, paradise is just a natural part of our experience living here in Southern California. My brother was just visiting last week from Seattle. And Seattle's a cool place. You know, there's beauty there if you like pasty white people with coffee breath. And he came down for a couple days, and we hung out, and we went out and we went paddleboarding down at Newport Beach. And it was awesome. We just went out and went paddleboarding, and had a great evening, and spent the rest of our time together doing other things. And I'm going to say that again, but imagine hearing this from the perspective that you live in Buffalo, New York. You live in Buffalo, New York, and I'm telling you, hey, some random Friday afternoon in February, my brother and I went paddleboarding in the Pacific Ocean wearing only board shorts, and I got sunburned. It's ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous concept of why we live or how we live in such this beautiful and wonderful place. And it's not just the aesthetics and the weather. There's even these other aspects that say we have this element of perfection or paradise or beauty or goodness all around us. Well, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and so I talk to people very intimately in my office, conversations about vulnerabilities, insecurities, discontentments. And you can imagine in those vulnerable conversations, I hear a lot of actually the opposite. Sadness, loneliness, disconnection, really feeling frustrated with aspects of their lives. And so I call this the paradise paradox because in spite of the fact that we live in such a wonderful and beautiful place, there is a lot of unhappiness and unwonderful and unbeautiful feelings that are happening right around us. I wanted to share from the School of Psychology this belief that most people have these underlying anxieties about kind of some different things that are unconscious. They're often called existential anxieties. And what that means is that all people, or most people at least, have this insecurity or fear, wondering about what's the meaning of my life? Am I significant? What's the purpose of life? And why do we do this thing called existence in our life? And there's anxiety about that. And that underlying anxiety that we don't often talk about or even become aware of is this churning engine inside of us that motivates us, that drives us to say, I need to go out and find some level of significance. I need to prove to myself that my existence has value. And so what we do is we look for ways that we can compare ourselves with others in order to feel good enough. So I know that I'll be significant or my life will have meaning as long as I'm able to do this thing in comparison to other people who are not doing that particular thing. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? And so that churning anxiety fuels insecurity and creates this subjective standard of significance that we're longing to find to say, I now have worth, or my worthiness is based on this subjective qualifier that I've created. I call that the subjective standard of significance. So we create a subjective standard of significance, and it's totally fluid, and there's no concrete foundation of really where it is or where it comes from. Some of the unique ways we live out that subjective standard of significance are we find financial or materialistic benefit. Because as long as I make enough money or have enough stuff, I'll feel worthy enough or I'll feel significant enough. So I lean into ways that I'm making money or collecting things, and I'm hoping that will make me feel happy, meaningful, or significant in my life. And we all know, and everyone in this room has heard, that money can't buy you happiness. But now there's some really wonderful research on the idea of psychology of happiness and what is it that truly makes us happy as human beings, and how can we actually fuel happiness instead of do things that are not effective in becoming happier people. And one of the studies that really stood out that I saw recently about money and happiness showed how when an individual goes from essentially no money, someone who has no money, they're deeply impoverished, there's no concept of actual real net worth in their life, essentially someone who's worth $5,000 to go to a status of being worth $50,000 as far as an annual financial position, there's a massive spike in happiness. So as soon as someone gets to that place of realizing, I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat or where I'm going to sleep, when there's my basic human needs met, happiness goes way, way up. Ironically, studying individuals at $50,000 compared to $5 million of net worth, there's a very small increase. So essentially, from the scientific research perspective, what we realize is once our basic needs are met, the concept of happiness or well-being or meaning is totally subjective. So finances is one of those things, but we go for it. We run hard after, especially here in Orange County. There's such an earnest desire to seek wealth, or at least personify wealth, and show that we're wealthy, or try to be wealthy, or whatever it is. And yet, we know that that's not really it. Likewise, work and busyness. It's so funny that we actually think that busyness is a status symbol. It's esteemable. Like, oh man, you're so busy. You must be so important or something. No, you have horrible time management. Delegate. Hello, prioritize. Or you have 4 kids and then it's totally legitimate. So busyness, no, but yet we long for significance in that. We think that we're important or we have meaning if we are busy enough or we throw ourselves into our work. Obviously, I can't talk about Orange County or Southern California without talking about body image. That we have to have this persona of physical perfection in how our bodies are or how we present our bodies in terms of the image we put forth. And again, I think there's obviously the part of humanity that has that, but Southern California has a unique expression of it. I promise that hotyogagirl.com is not photographed in Columbus, Ohio. Okay? There's something about the Southern California sort of physical persona that is idolized or shot after as hoping that will be this level of significance that we find. Also, we look at social media. And social media really has become a very tangible way that we think we have worth or significance if we've hit certain marks in the social media paradigm. So if I have a certain number of followers, or a certain number of likes, or a certain number of shares, then all of a sudden I have a feeling of significance, or a feeling of meaning. And one of the things that comes to mind is Pinterest. And so Pinterest, for example. One of the reasons that Pinterest is, I think, so psychologically enticing for individuals is not just because it's got some really cool stuff on it, which it does, but there is this sense of a standard by comparing myself to Pinterest. Because I'm okay if my clothes, my hair, my tattoo, or my friends, or my dinner party, or my home, or my kids, or my event looks Pinterest worthy, then I'm okay. Then I'm significant. And this is so deeply ingrained into us. It's such a natural part of the way this generation views our worthiness or compares ourselves or validates our being. And it's so silly. It really is just so ridiculous. And I'm doing it right now. Because I hope you tweet the heck out of this talk, honestly. This needs to go viral, y'all, okay? And we do it, and it's just so deeply ingrained, and it just causes so many problems. And I have 1:23 seconds left, and darn it. A couple quick problems about that. First of all, is it creates tunnel vision. By living in that sort of paradigm to say my worth is based on the significance of these social media things, then I am not really willing or ready to look at unattractive things. So to look at negative or scary or unattractive things is really not very pleasant. So I avoid those things and I live with a limited scope of perspective. Also, guys, it kills authentic community. You cannot have authentic community with pretense. And if my life is based on facade or performance or how I'm presenting myself, I'm not being authentic in that. It is impossible to have intimacy without vulnerability. We have to show our yucky side sometimes to really be connected and be deep with people. Hey, I want to just leave a couple quick ideas of how I think we can foster that in our lives and in our community. The first is, I think we can increase a deeper and truer meaning of significance if we first and foremost really get honest. If we really start getting honest in our lives, in our relationships, with our friendships, with our community, that says, you know what, here are my fears. Here are my insecurities. Here's my fears and feelings about my insignificance. It's a vulnerable, honest conversation. Likewise, I think we can foster gratitude. By fostering gratitude, we're having both a conscious and a biochemical experience of saying, I'm really into this good thing. I am grateful for this good thing. And it more deeply resonates with us, and we feel more grounded and connected to it and sharing those with ourselves and with each other. The third thing that I want to encourage you guys to think about are different ways that you can give back. Service. Being generous, giving back in anonymity. Okay? That's the secret. Go serve at the soup kitchen and don't go #volunteer, I mean, you've got to be able to go and serve without recognition. leaning into that, finding ways to give without somehow getting the social media stroke on the other side of it. And lastly, guys, is just fostering an awareness. Deepening this sense of, what am I really wanting in life? Who am I really? What does meaning or purpose look like for me? Authentically me. Not copycatting someone else, but truly being myself. Fostering a depth of groundedness with who I am, with who I'm doing life with God, with others, with purpose. Just the beginning of the conversation, but thank you so much for letting me share today.